And Lonnie Ayers, you are the president of SAP BW Consulting. You are a master at inbound marketing. So that's what we're going to talk about in this podcast interview. But first off, can you just kind of explain roughly what SAP BW Consulting does?
Yeah, we provide just what the name says, consulting to people who are implementing SAP BW, and BW stands for Business Warehouse, which is a fancy name for data warehouse, which is a fancy name for Uber reporting system that comes with every SAP system.
And again, just basic definition. So, what's SAP?
So SAP is a name of a software provided by a German company. It stands for Software Applications and Program, and it is the largest business software vendor in the world. They sell what's called ERP. ERP stands for Enterprise Resource Planning Software. The Department of Defense uses it. Every Fortune 500 company basically uses it. It ties finance, logistics, and human resources together in one tight package.
Even for somebody who doesn't know what SAP is, if you saw the logo, those guys. Yeah, I've seen that.
You've seen them in every airport, basically.
Yeah. Well, that's great. So how did you get into this space? And by the way, I should say that we're both veterans. So thank you so much for serving. You were you officer in the Air Force? Is that right?
I was indeed, yeah.
Terrific. Great. And what'd you do in the Air Force?
Well, I actually started off as enlisted. I worked as a crew chief on F-4 Phantoms. They call us knuckle draggers. And then I was a flight engineer on C-130s. And then after that, I was an aircraft maintenance officer on F-16s, B-52s, C-5s. I was in the first Gulf War. And then I retired after that. And and that's actually what led me to my job in Middle East. I was in Saudi Arabia for 8 years, working for the Royal Saudi Air Force. And as part of that job, I was eventually tasked with evaluating SAP as an ERP provider, and that led to a job that eventually led to where I'm at today. So,
excellent. Okay, so tell me about the services then that SAP BW does. A little bit more specifically, so talk to me very practical about if I'm a small, medium-sized owner, learn from you. What could you do for me?
Well, typically you already have SAP implemented, and so you would come to us and you would want to get better data out of it. So we would help with your data warehouse called Business Warehouse. We would design a complete end-to-end reporting strategy for you. That's the one side of it. The other side of it is I'm a very senior SAP project manager, so I'm still very much out in the field besides running my business. And so big companies will hire me to implement this from the get-go, and small companies as well. But when I say big companies, one of my last big implementations that I was like greenfield implementation, nothing there, was a company called Costco. You may have heard of them, and they sent me to Spain, which is where I'm sitting at today, to stand it up for them and their European rollout. So we do that. I have a team. I also have a network of SAP partners. So if you need development work, I have teams that can do that for me. If you need project staffing, I have teams that can do that. But these days, I get most of my personal business is I do inbound marketing for other SAP partners.
Right. And so that gets into HubSpot. Yep, that gets into HubSpot and all that. So give me, talk to me about when you say inbound, what does that encompass?
At its most basic level, I get people to find you. Using content marketing. That's really what it's all about. It's a four-step methodology. It's based on producing useful content and that people can use. And these days, it's very advanced content. So on my site, for example, you will find 18 calculators that we have designed over the years that actually answer questions for people, and tools. So a lot of people are looking for a tool to do something. And as well, when I stand up an e-commerce operation, we use content to sell the product with. So one of the beginning things that we offer is we do a strategy assessment across the board and says, okay, here's what we're going to stand up. And it's kind of fun because guys say, I got nothing, but I got a budget. So we stand up a store. The shoe guy, Darren of Heyday Footwear, he was already running. We took him to the next level. We combined custom shoe design with Shopify e-commerce with HubSpot inbound. So, I'd like to tell you it's simple, but it's not. But we've grown a lot of businesses from zero to hero in a very short period of time.
Okay, so if I'm producing content, explain to me how HubSpot fits in that. I mean, so I'm producing podcasts, producing blogs, producing content on social media. Where does HubSpot fit in that?
So HubSpot is your marketing platform. I always encourage everybody to be 100% on HubSpot. By that, I mean their website is totally hosted on HubSpot. It doesn't have to be, but the basic model is this. You have a piece of content, it's behind a form, someone fills out that form to get to the content, they download it, you've got them in a lead in your system, and now you pull them through your system to your ultimate sales goal. That's the boiled down version of that.
Okay, so I talk a lot about sales funnels. So we're talking about a sales funnel, right?
Yeah. Only now we're one level above sales, we're at marketing. And one of the key things I will say, the hard lesson learned for anybody, small, medium, or large, is this: you better know what you're selling. And by that, I mean the benefits of the product that you sell and how you sell it. That's what HubSpot actually forces you to do, is to think through that process top to bottom.
Really?
And so they have a CRM site as well. So that's for me the totally cool thing about it. When somebody comes in on the website, it's instantly available to the sales team, and they can start to follow up, and you can design that process end to end. Or if it's a hands-off sales, which is your best bet, they can help you close that deal as well.
So give me an example of, so you worked with a client, and they had they're a shoe retailer, right?
Right.
So explain to me how this worked for them.
All right. Well, we had to have a hook. So everybody you'll run across a concept called lead magnets. You'll hear it as hooks. It's what's your spiel. So borrowing from a concept from another client that we worked with, we installed what's called a BMI calculator. But we didn't call it, it was a BMI calculator, but everybody wants to know, what should I weigh? And that was the question. So we put a calculator, that was the hook that got people to fill it out. Oh, by the way, here's an offer for a shoe. And so we took him from having about 2,000 contacts to around 29,000 contacts in his email database.
Yeah.
And in e-commerce, a contact is gold for you, right? And then we could start a series of targeted lead nurturing things, and in his case, the other complementary part of the strategy was we had a blog, and we blogged consistently. And when we finished, you never finished, but when we got to where we thought, okay, that's enough, we had over 200 blogs written by a professional athlete about working out. And we converted all of those into downloadable ebooks that we would give away. But if you download one, you might want the second one, because we had the guy design his blogs around an upper body workout, mid and legs. And so there was a lot of different strategies that you could work out around that. And he had a lot of traffic coming in from that blog. And really, that's the key across the board, whether it's e-commerce or like mine. I have over 400 offers and blogs on my website that I've personally produced over the years. And they still produce traffic and new leads every single day for us. So that's how you do it.
So what makes a really good lead magnet then? And just think about, how consumer behavior has evolved over the past 5-10 years.
All right, I have to break that out into two types of consumers. The first one is, I mentioned it, the BMI calculator. It has to be very simple, something that I can look on Google and I can see that there's a vast search volume for this particular thing.
Yeah.
And I can build a calculator and I can do that. I can put it out there and I get that. Sometimes it can be unique. I had a client who had a database of cost differentials for construction. And so we built an online tool that was very useful to contract people to figure out differences in costs between two different cities. And we built that, and that was our freebie. It was there, run it, boom. But now we know who you are, right?
Yeah.
The business side, so if it's pure, that's B2C, B2B. But if it's pure B2B, oftentimes it's okay, case studies still work, but if calculators still work. But one of the most useful things that we can do is build a tool that does work that is far harder than it should be. So, in our case, we have in profound knowledge, as Dr. Deming used to say, of a particular process, and that process is how to estimate the duration of a SAP BW project, our bread and butter. Well, that was a 2 or 3 week project in the past. We sat around and we thought about it, and we've got a calculator on our website that literally in 5 minutes produces a good enough estimate. And we don't charge anything for it. We just need your name.
So with this BMI calculator, then at some point you're wanting to get an email address.
Exactly. To get your results, you give me your email. That's
okay.
Right. So if so to finish the answer, the offer has to be worth at least an email address. But we get far more than that. You know, this is where the HubSpot part comes in. So we never try to close people on the first thing they do on our website. We have 400 offers, and they're all in funnels, and our stuff is designed so that it's helping you as you go through a project. And we use what's called progressive profiling. People, our forms only ask for a piece of information once, and then the next time you come back to my site, it's going to ask for something else. So I might ask you, you know, what's your LinkedIn profile? Well, you got to go do something. I don't want to ask that, right? But I'm going to ask for different things that we have found useful during the sales process. And then we know what offers to go like. You know, it takes some design and thought process to do that, plus the effort of creating that offer. And I'll give you one, and then I'll close that.
Yeah.
Another really hard process is to develop a scope document for a project. So we have a consultant that we work with that's an expert in what's called SAP Flexible Real Estate. That's the software used to manage buildings and cities and things like that. And he has to build a scope no matter what's happening. He has to come up with a scope even after the contract signed, which is backwards. So we worked with him to build a HubSpot-based tool that you answer 9 questions and it produces a scope document. That a scope document is a fancy way of saying, well, this is what we're really going to do for you. And it does it on the fly. And we say, here's your presentation. That has been golden for us. So that's what it takes to make an ideal lead magnet.
Yeah. And so talk to me about what HubSpot does really, really well that other providers may not have included in it. So, you know, I'm familiar with Infusionsoft. I've used Lead Pages, ClickFunnels, Kartra. Those are primarily, especially those last 3, are primarily sales pages, email automation, that sort of thing. HubSpot obviously has the built-in CRM into that. And I think that might be one of the key differentiators. Anything else? And I know, like I said, I know HubSpot is pretty beefy stuff.
It is, but it's also extremely user-friendly in my opinion. But just from a top-level view, the thing that they do right that really hooked me in was education. They are bar none the best educational. Yeah. So they really break it down for you and they teach you step by step. So that for me is golden, and I redo all the education every year. I hold like 13 HubSpot certifications in both marketing and sales, and I have to repeat them all the time. They're not hard to do, but for some people, you know, that's a big deal. But what it does, I think, really well, besides it allows you to organize your work into campaigns. It allows you to store and deliver all your content in those campaigns. And what you will find is, as a website gets big and complex and whatnot, you need some system to help you keep it all organized. Because it'll, you know, I've got stuff that's been running since 2011 when we started that's still running, but I can't remember why. Well, I can go back to what's called the strategy tool, and I can see all the things that are connected to it. Every email, every social media post, every blog post, every call that I've ever had with any contact that came in from that, and I can learn from it. So for me, that's the big deal, is the total visibility. But these days, I would say the bigger benefit to something like HubSpot is the partner ecosystem. There's all these things that you can plug into it, and that's the play for all the software players, right? But it's getting to be a huge universe of things that just plug straight in. So
I love it.
You know, I've plugged in, I've integrated HubSpot and Salesforce, for example. It's easy money. I would, you know, But here's the big one on the CRM side, especially. Typical SAP implementation might well take 9 months. It's not that SAP is complicated or hard. It's just that you're typically implementing in very complex environments. But on HubSpot, I just turn that on the day I give you your user ID, and we go from there. And we might do some other work to, develop for sales phone, but there is no implementation. It's cloud-based. You turn it on, there it is. Okay, here's how this works. There's just no comparison between the two systems. That said, you're not going to do things that in one that are done in the other. They're not exactly the same, but they're very close and very, very different in their implementation.
Nice.
Yep.
But by laying all these, these systems out, some of the clients that you've worked with have gone on to do some pretty good stuff once they start formalizing. I think a lot of us start and we're just, we're kind of, growing little bits and pieces, but eventually, we really need to get that full customer journey thing all laid out thing.
Right.
Jeez, I sound like a genius right now. But when we do that, then it really helps us scale much better. And I think it creates an infrastructure where we can plug and play key people on our team a lot better. Again, I think at the beginning, we work with a lot of agency owners that are kind of up and up, and so they're starting to hire more. But I think this is a major challenge: is their sales and marketing processes, developing a great CRM that's just fully integrated with everything. Obviously, you've seen when you've kind of plugged this in with a client, they've gone on to do some good stuff as a result.
They have indeed. It's a very powerful combination. So
nice.
It's definitely rocket fuel for most businesses if it's done right. But again, I will go back. There's two critical things to really getting the most out of HubSpot, and that is one, knowing what you sell and how you sell it. That's like priority one. I can't overemphasize that enough.
Yeah,
and then two, building content that's there's a strategy behind it that makes full use of everything, and making sure that it's in the system and up there so the public can find you with it. And those two together just do amazing things. I mean, I took one client in 3 years from 0 to almost 50 million a year in operations, and it was like, how does this work?
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow, man. Maybe we should be talking. Lonnie, just for someone who's not familiar, like what kind of price point does HubSpot have?
Well, they have a starter, which is, they have a free offering, which most everybody can just plug in. I recommend it. They have, and that is like $50. That was really not where we play. So the two that you're really talking about is professional and enterprise. And professional is going to be probably right around $1,000 a month when it's all in, for the platform, the web hosting, and all that. And it can go up a little bit, and then enterprise, I think, is around $2,400 a month. It's all available on their website, and it's really based on contacts. And it used to be, and I'd have to go verify, but once you have about 38,000 email contacts in your database, then enterprise is financially the right answer at that point. But enterprise allows you to do quite a few things that professional doesn't quite get you there. But for most businesses, let's say they're at 10 million, and between 1 and 10, professional is more than enough. Characteristics, you need to, usually I see at least 1 or 2 marketers working in a business for it to be successful. But even for a smaller guy, I mean, let's say you've got not a lot. There's not much traffic on your website, but you've got a couple of ebooks or something like that. You plug in HubSpot free into a WordPress website, and you start, they got these little pop-up forms that allow you to do it. That's how cheap you can get started with this. So
no, it's great. Well, good deal. Well, Lonnie Ayers, thank you so much for joining us again. You're the president and founder of SAP BW Consulting. Great conversation. I think this stimulated a lot of ideas for, people, and most of our audience, they've got established businesses. And so now it's all about scaling. Really, really great conversation, of course. So people can connect with you, and your website address is SAPBW Your phone number's on there, everything to contact you. Lonnie, thank you so much for joining us.
I appreciate the interview, and looking forward to hearing from all your users, and talk to you later.